Instead of fleeing the blizzard, a poor black innkeeper chose to stay behind, sheltering 15 stranded strangers, even though he knew his supplies wouldn't last. And when he learned that one traveler was still missing, he risked his life venturing into the White Fury to find her before the storm swallowed her whole. What he didn't know was that the fragile woman he saved that night would soon give him a chance that would change his life forever. Before we dive deeper into this story, tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories every day. The wind hit the windows like fists. Calvin Brooks stood in the empty lobby of Beacon Lodge watching snow pile up against the glass. The radio crackled. Severe weather alert for Flathead County. Blizzard conditions expected through Christmas Eve. All travel strongly discouraged. He turned it off. Didn't need a weatherman to tell him what he could see with his own eyes. The lodge was quiet. Too quiet. No guests for 3 weeks now. Just him and the ghosts of better days. Calvin walked to the fireplace, running his hand along the stone mantel. His father had built this place 40 years ago, stone by stone, log by log, a refuge for travelers caught in Montana's brutal winters. Now it was dying. "Still here, Calvin," he turned. Tom Hendricks, the postman, stamped snow off his boots at the door. "Where else would I be?" Tom shook his head. "Bank called me yesterday, asked if I'd seen activity here. They're coming after New Year's, you know that." Calvin nodded. He knew. 3 months behind on the mortgage. The final notice sat on his desk upstairs next to the photo of his father. "You could sell it," Tom said. "Get something for it before they take it. To who nobody wants an old lodge in the middle of nowhere. Then leave. Go back to Seattle. You had a good job there." Calvin looked at the front window. Outside, through the swirling snow, the lodge's sign glowed. Beacon Lodge, light always on. "Can't," he said. Tom followed his gaze. "Your daddy's rule." Yeah, it was more than a rule. It was a promise. His father had kept that light burning every night for 40 years, even when money was tight, even when guests didn't come, because someone might need it. Calvin was 8 years old the night his father went out into a blizzard. A family's car had skidded off the road 2 miles down. His father saw their headlights from the lodge, grabbed his coat, and ran into the storm. He saved them, a mother, father, and 2 kids. But his heart gave out on the walk back. Calvin remembered the ambulance lights, the way they looked against all that white, red and blue flashing through the snow. His mother crying, the paramedics shaking their heads. The last thing his father said was, "Keep the light on, son." 26 years later, Calvin was still keeping it on, even if it killed him too. "Storm's getting worse," Tom said. "I'm heading back before the roads close completely. You should think about what I said." "I will." But they both knew he wouldn't. Tom left. The door closed. Calvin was alone again. He walked through the lodge, checking windows, stoking the fire. 16 rooms, all empty. The kitchen still smelled like coffee from this morning. He'd made a full pot out of habit, even though he was the only one here. In the office, he looked at the bills. Electric, gas, property tax. The numbers blurred together. He'd sold everything he could. His truck was 12 years old. His clothes were worn. He ate 1 meal a day to save money. But the lights stayed on. His phone rang. Seattle number. Calvin Brooks speaking. "This is Jennifer Walsh from First Mountain Bank. I'm calling about your property at—" "I know what you're calling about." Silence. Then, "Mr. Brooks, we've been very patient, but we need to schedule a foreclosure date. Can you come in next week?" He looked out the window. The snow was coming down heavier now. The world was disappearing into white. "Sure," he said. "Next week." He hung up. Outside, the wind howled. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. Calvin went to the front desk and flipped the switch that controlled the sign. The neon buzzed to life, casting its warm glow into the storm. Beacon Lodge, light always on. His father's voice echoed in his head. "It's better to share your last candle than to curse the dark." Calvin grabbed his coat. Time to check the generator. Storm like this, the power might go out. But the light would stay on. It always did. As he headed to the back door, he heard something. Faint at first, then louder, knocking. Someone was at the front door. Calvin opened the door. A blast of wind and snow hit him. "Please!" A woman's voice barely audible over the storm. "We need help!" He pulled the door wider. They stumbled in, wet, shaking, desperate. 1 person, 2, 5, 10. More kept coming. "How many of you are there?" 15. A man said, snow crusted in his beard. "Roads completely blocked, trees down everywhere. We've been trying to get through for 2 hours." Calvin looked at them. Young and old, a mother clutching a little girl, 3 truck drivers in Carhartt jackets, 5 people in expensive hiking gear, a thin man with a military patch on his worn coat, 2 teenagers holding hands, all of them cold, all of them scared. "Come in," he said. "Get away from the door." They crowded into the lobby, dripping on the hardwood floors. The little girl was crying softly. Her mother tried to calm her, but her own teeth were chattering too hard. Calvin moved fast. "Listen up. I need everyone to take off wet clothes. There are blankets in the closet there. Grab what you need. Bathrooms down that hall. I'll get the fire going bigger." "Do you have rooms?" one of the hikers asked. Young guy, maybe 25, with expensive sunglasses pushed up on his head. "I have rooms, but the heat's better down here by the fireplace. We'll set up camp in the lobby tonight." "What about food?" one of the truck drivers asked. "Good question." Calvin did a quick mental inventory. He had enough for himself for maybe 4 days. "For 15 people. I'll figure it out," he said. The veteran caught his eye. Something passed between them. Recognition. The look of men who'd been in tight spots before. Calvin went to the kitchen, opened cupboards, took stock. Soup cans, pasta, rice, coffee, some frozen meat in the freezer, bread. 2 days, maybe 3 if he stretched it. He started the coffee maker, put every pot he had on the stove, filled them with water for soup and pasta. In the lobby, people were settling in. The hikers huddled together, whispering. The truck drivers had claimed a corner. The mother sat with her daughter near the fire, the little girl's face finally showing some color. Calvin brought out blankets, mugs of hot coffee. The first pot of soup, split pea thinned with extra water. "Is this all you have?" The young hiker again. "My group paid for a hotel in Whitefish. We shouldn't be stuck here." "Then go," Calvin said evenly. "Door's right there." The kid looked at the window. The storm had gotten worse. You couldn't see 10 feet. He sat back down. "Thank you," the mother said to Calvin. "I'm Sarah. This is Emma." "Calvin, you saved us." "I didn't think. When we saw your light." She didn't finish. Didn't need to. The veteran extended his hand. "James Cortez, Army retired." Calvin shook it. "Welcome. You run this place alone." "Yeah, that's a lot of work." "It is." James looked around at the others. "You know you don't have enough food for all of us." Calvin met his eyes. "I know. And you let us in anyway." "What else was I going to do?" James nodded slowly, respect in his eyes. One of the truck drivers stood up. Big guy, red flannel shirt name tag that said, Dave. "Hold on. We need to talk about this. How long's this storm supposed to last?" "Radio said through tomorrow." Calvin answered. "That's 2 days. You just said you don't have enough food. What happens when it runs out?" "We ration." "That's not a plan. That's starving slower." Dave looked around at the others. "I'm just saying what we're all thinking. Maybe some people should leave. Make space for the rest." "No one's leaving," Calvin said. "Why? Because you say so. Because they'll die out there." The room went quiet. Only the crackling of the fire and the wind outside. Emma, the little girl, started crying again. Sarah held her close. Calvin took a breath. "Look, I get it. You're scared. But my father taught me something. It's better to share your last candle than to curse the dark. We have food. We have heat. We have shelter. That's more than the people still out there." "There are more people out there," one of the teenagers asked. One of the hikers, a woman in her 30s with a fleece jacket, spoke up. "Our friend, Evelyn, we got separated on the trail. She was behind us. We hoped she'd made it down another way." Calvin's stomach tightened. "How long ago?" 3 hours, maybe 4. 4 hours in this storm, in freezing temperatures. "She has gear," the young hiker said quickly. "Emergency blanket matches. She knows what she's doing." "That doesn't matter if she can't find shelter," James said quietly. Calvin walked to the window, pressed his hand against the cold glass. Somewhere out there, a woman was alone in the dark. Maybe alive, maybe not. He thought of his father, the promise, the light. "What's her name again?" he asked. "Evelyn. Evelyn Morrison." Calvin nodded, turned back to the group. "All right, everyone stays here. Stay warm. Ration the food, you'll get what you need, but nobody takes more. James, can you help me organize?" "Of course." "And that woman, Evelyn, if she's out there, she'll be looking for light. She'll find us." He hoped he believed it. The young hiker scoffed. "You're just going to wait. Someone should go look for her." "In this," Dave gestured to the window. "That's suicide. She's our friend. And we'd all like to stay alive." Calvin held up his hand. "Enough. Right now, we focus on keeping everyone here safe. When the storm breaks, we'll look. But even as he said it, he was thinking 4 hours. In this cold, that might be too late. The group settled into an uneasy peace. Calvin distributed more blankets, made more coffee, tried not to think about the woman out there, tried not to think about the light that might not reach far enough. Calvin couldn't sleep. He lay on the couch in his office, staring at the ceiling, listening to the storm rage outside. Downstairs, the guests were quiet, sleeping maybe, or lying awake like him. He kept thinking about Evelyn Morrison, a name without a face, someone's friend, someone's daughter probably, someone who went hiking on the wrong day. And now? He sat up, checked his watch. 2:47 a.m., 6 hours since she'd gone missing. The radio on his desk crackled with weather updates. 25 below with wind chill. Exposure risk is extreme. All residents should... He turned it off. His father's photo watched him from the desk, taken 30 years ago. Strong, smiling. The lodge behind him. What would you do? Calvin asked the picture, but he already knew. He stood up, put on his thermal layer, then his flannel, then his heavy coat, grabbed the emergency rope from the supply closet, his strongest flashlight, the first aid kit. Downstairs, James was awake, keeping watch by the fire. Can't sleep either, he asked. No. James looked at Calvin's gear. You're going out. Yeah. That's a bad idea. I know. You could die. I know that too. James stood up slowly. His knees creaked. I'd go with you, but these old bones aren't what they used to be. You'll be faster alone anyway. I will. How will you find her? Calvin thought about it. The trail they were on, it leads past here. Right, if she got turned around, she might have followed it. There's a ravine about half a mile out. If she fell... He didn't finish. James nodded. Take the rope. If you're not back in an hour, I'm calling search and rescue. They won't come out in this. I know, but I'll call anyway. Calvin checked his flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness. Strong. Bright. There's something you should know, James said. That woman Evelyn. Her friend said she's wealthy. Important. Runs some big foundation. Doesn't matter. Just thought you should know what you're risking yourself for. Calvin looked at him. Would it change anything if she was poor? James smiled. No, I guess it wouldn't. Calvin tied the rope around his waist. The other end he secured to the porch railing. If he got disoriented, the rope would lead him back. Hey, James said, your father would be proud. Calvin didn't respond, just opened the door and stepped into the storm. The cold hit him like a wall. Even with all his layers, it cut through. The wind tried to push him back. Snow stung his face, blinding him. He put his head down and walked. The flashlight beam showed nothing but white. No trail, no landmarks, just endless snow. He counted steps. 50, 100, 200. The rope pulled tight behind him. He was at its limit, maybe 40 yards from the lodge. Not far enough. He untied it, felt it slip away. Now he was alone. Truly alone. He pushed forward. The wind howled. His feet broke through snow up to his knees. Every step was work. Every breath burned his lungs. 500 steps. 600. Evelyn! His voice disappeared into the storm. Evelyn Morrison! Nothing. 700 steps. 800. His flashlight caught something. A patch of color, red. He stumbled toward it. A glove. Women's size. North Face brand. She'd been here. Evelyn! He swung the flashlight in arcs, looking for more signs. The beam caught something else. A scarf. 20 feet ahead, caught on a tree branch. He followed the trail, moving faster now. Hope pushing him forward. Then his foot hit air. The ravine. He caught himself at the edge, flashlight nearly flying from his hand. He lay flat on his stomach, looking down. 10 feet below, at the bottom, a dark shape. Evelyn. The shape didn't move. Calvin's heart hammered. He uncoiled his rope, tied it to the nearest tree. Tested it. Secure. He lowered himself down, hand over hand, feet finding holds in the rocky wall. The shape became clearer. A person, lying on their side, not moving. He dropped the last 3 feet, landed hard, scrambled over. A woman, 40s maybe. Her face was pale, lips blue. Her eyes were closed. He pulled off his glove, pressed 2 fingers to her neck. There, faint, but there. A pulse. Evelyn, can you hear me? No response. He checked her quickly. No obvious broken bones, but her temperature, she was ice cold. Hypothermia. Severe. He had to move her. Now. Calvin pulled off his coat, wrapped it around her. Then he positioned himself, got her on his back, started climbing. The rope. One hand pulling, the other holding her. His legs shaking. every muscle screaming, "Don't drop her! Don't fall!" Halfway up, his hand slipped. He slammed into the wall. Evelyn's weight nearly pulled him back down. He growled, grabbed the rope again, pulled, made it to the top. He laid her down in the snow, caught his breath. His whole body was shaking now, exertion, cold adrenaline. But he wasn't done. He got her on his back again, started walking, trying to remember the direction. The storm disoriented everything. There, a light, faint, distant. The lodge. He walked toward it. His legs barely worked. Evelyn's weight was crushing, but the light got closer, closer. His foot hit the porch step. He nearly collapsed. The door opened. James. Oh my God. Hands reached out. The truck drivers. They pulled Evelyn inside. Calvin stumbled in after them, fell to his knees. "She's alive," he gasped. "Barely." Sarah was already moving. "Get her by the fire. Someone bring blankets. Hot water not boiling warm." They worked like a team, stripping Evelyn's wet clothes, wrapping her in dry blankets, holding warm water bottles against her skin. Calvin sat against the wall watching. His whole body hurt, but she was breathing, her chest rising and falling. James brought him coffee. "You did it, man. You actually did it." Calvin couldn't respond, could barely hold the cup. "Hang on, ma'am," he whispered, though she couldn't hear him. Beacon Lodge is still shining. Calvin woke to sunlight streaming through the windows. Morning, Christmas Eve morning. He was still on the floor by the fire. Every muscle in his body screamed. His fingers were numb. His face felt sunburned from the cold. But he was alive. He looked around. Most of the guests were sleeping. Sarah and Emma curled up together. The truck drivers in a pile of blankets. James in a chair, head back, softly snoring. And Evelyn. She was awake. Their eyes met across the fire. Hers were green, clear, intelligent. "You're the one who found me," she said. Her voice was hoarse but strong. Calvin nodded. "Thank you." "You're welcome." She sat up slowly, still wrapped in blankets. "How bad was it?" "Bad. You were unconscious when I found you. Core temperature probably around 90 degrees. Another hour and—" He didn't need to finish. "Another hour and I'd be dead." She said it matter-of-factly. No drama, just truth. "Yeah." "What time is it?" He checked his watch. 8:30. "Christmas Eve." "Merry Christmas." She almost smiled. "Merry Christmas." The others started waking. Sarah saw Evelyn sitting up and nearly cried with relief. The hikers surrounded her, asking questions. Everyone wanted to know the story. Calvin stood up wincing, slipped away to the kitchen. Time to figure out breakfast. The cupboards looked even emptier now. He did the math. 15 people. Maybe 4 days until the storm cleared and roads opened. He could make oatmeal, stretch it thin, add extra water, give everyone something warm in their bellies. He was stirring the pot when Evelyn appeared in the doorway. "You should rest," he said. "I've rested enough. Can I help? You were nearly frozen to death 6 hours ago, and now I'm not. So can I help?" He looked at her, something fierce in her eyes. A refusal to be helpless. "Sure, bowls are in that cabinet." They worked in silence. She moved stiffly but competently, found spoons, set up a serving station, poured coffee. "This is a beautiful place," she said. "Thanks." "How long have you run it?" 3 years. My father built it, ran it for 40. And now you carry on. Try to." She looked at him. "Try to." He didn't answer, kept stirring. "The light," she said. "Your sign. Light always on. That's not just marketing, is it?" "No, it's a promise. My father's promise. If someone's lost, they can always find us. That's why you came for me." "Yes." "Even though you didn't know me, even though it almost killed you." "Yes." She was quiet for a moment. "Then I was with the Aurora Foundation. Do you know it?" "No." "We do sustainable tourism development, rural areas mostly, helping communities build infrastructure without destroying their character." She paused. "My husband died 3 years ago. Mountain climbing accident in Nepal. He fell, hit his head. By the time they found him..." Calvin stopped stirring. "I'm sorry. There was a village nearby, but no one would open their doors. Storm coming. They were afraid. So he died alone in the cold." Her voice was steady, but he could hear the pain underneath. "That's why I work with Aurora now, so no one else has to die alone. And that's why you were hiking in a blizzard. We were supposed to be back before the storm hit, but the weather changed fast." She looked at him. "If not for your light, I would have died the same way he did." Calvin poured oatmeal into bowls. "But you didn't." "No, I didn't." They brought breakfast out. Everyone ate quietly. The oatmeal was thin, but it was warm. For now, that was enough. After breakfast, Calvin checked the radio. The news wasn't good. Storms stalled over the region, winds up to 70 miles per hour, temperatures dropping, no travel possible, emergency services suspended. How long? Dave asked. They're saying another 48 hours. Groans around the room. The young hiker threw his hands up. This is insane. We're trapped here. We're alive here, James corrected. Barely. What happens when the food runs out? We share what we have. For how long? There's 15 of us and 14, Evelyn said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. There's 14 of you now. I'm the 15th, and I was dead weight. Literally. Calvin carried me back, used his last energy saving me. So if anyone should get less food, it's me. That's not, Calvin started. It's true, and it's okay. We'll figure it out together. Something shifted in the room. The tension eased. Even the young hiker looked ashamed. Sarah spoke up. My daughter and I, we don't need much. Kids eat less anyway. I've been rationing for years, James said. Military habit. I'll be fine. One by one, they agreed. To share, to ration, to survive together. Calvin felt something in his chest, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. That afternoon, the power flickered, then died. The lodge went dark. Only the fire provided light. Generator, Dave asked. Calvin shook his head. Fuel line's frozen. Been a problem all winter. So no heat except the fire. Afraid so. They gathered closer to the fireplace. Calvin brought down every blanket in the building. They huddled together, strangers becoming a family out of necessity. Evening came. The storm raged on. Someone found an old guitar in the closet. Anyone play? Sarah asked. James took it, strummed a few chords, winced. Out of tune, but it'll do. He played. Simple songs, quiet songs. Everyone listened. Evelyn sat next to Calvin. They didn't talk. Just listened to the music and watched the fire. You remind me of someone I lost, she said finally. He looked at her. My husband. He was like you. Believed in doing the right thing even when it cost him everything. She smiled sadly. It did cost him everything in the end. I'm sorry. Don't be. The world needs people like you. Like him. People who keep the light on. The fire crackled. Outside snow kept falling. What will you do? She asked. After the storm. Calvin thought about the bank, the foreclosure, the end of everything his father built. I don't know, he said honestly. But you'll keep the light on. As long as I can. She nodded, looked at the fire. That's all any of us can do. Christmas Eve night fell over the lodge like a blanket. The storm had quieted to a steady whisper. Snow still fell, but the violent wind had stopped. Inside, the fire burned low. Calvin added more wood, carefully rationing what they had left. Is it midnight yet? Emma asked. Sarah checked her phone. The battery was dying, but it still worked. Almost, sweetheart. 20 minutes. Will Santa find us here? The question hung in the air. All the adults looked at each other. Of course he will, Evelyn said. Santa always finds the light. Emma smiled, satisfied. Calvin stood near the window, looking out at the darkness. The generator was dead. The lodge sign was dark for the first time in 40 years, but inside the fire still burned. Hey, James appeared beside him. You okay? The light's out. The one inside isn't. Calvin looked back at the room. 15 people huddled together, sharing blankets, sharing warmth, sharing Christmas Eve in the worst possible circumstances. And somehow, everyone was smiling. My father always said, Calvin spoke quietly, that the light wasn't about electricity. It was about hope, about showing people they weren't alone. Seems like you learned that lesson pretty well. Did I? The sign's dark. The generator's dead. We're almost out of food. I'm about to lose this place. Some lighthouse I am. James gripped his shoulder. Son, look around. You've got 15 people who would have died without you. That woman over there. He nodded toward Evelyn. She'd be frozen in a ravine. That mother and daughter would have been in a car somewhere, hoping someone would find them. Those truckers would be in a ditch. You saved us. All of us. Not with electricity. With your character. Calvin's throat tightened. He didn't trust himself to speak. Come on, James said. It's Christmas Eve. Let's make it count. They gathered around the fire. Someone suggested singing. At first, everyone was shy. But then Sarah started humming Silent Night, and one by one voices joined in. Calvin didn't sing. He just listened, watched. 15 strangers who'd become something more. Dave, the truck driver who'd complained about rations, now had Emma on his shoulders, making her giggle. The young hiker who'd called this place a trap was teaching the teenagers a card game by firelight. James had his eyes closed, swaying to the music, one hand on his heart. and Evelyn sat with Sarah, the two women talking quietly, sharing something private. When the song ended, James stood up. "I'd like to say something if y'all don't mind." Everyone turned to him. "I'm not a religious man, stopped believing in much after the war, but tonight sitting here, I'm reminded of something." He looked at Calvin. "This man Calvin, he could have turned us away. He didn't have to let us in, didn't have to share his last bit of food, didn't have to risk his life saving someone he'd never met." Evelyn was watching Calvin now. So was everyone else. But he did, because that's who he is. And I think that's what Christmas is really about. Not the presents, not the decorations. It's about seeing someone in need and saying, "You're not alone." It's about being the light in someone's darkness. James raised his coffee cup. "To Calvin and to Beacon Lodge, may this light never go out." "To Calvin," everyone echoed. Calvin felt his face flush. "I just accept the gratitude," Evelyn said gently. "You've earned it." He nodded, couldn't speak. Sarah pulled out her phone. "It's midnight. Merry Christmas, everyone." "Merry Christmas." Emma tugged on Calvin's sleeve. "Mr. Calvin." He knelt down to her level. "Yes, Emma. Thank you for saving my mommy and me. You're like Santa. You help people." Something broke inside him. He pulled the little girl into a hug, felt her small arms wrap around his neck. "You're welcome, sweetheart," he whispered. When he looked up, everyone was watching him. Even the cynical young hiker had tears in his eyes. The moment stretched. Perfect. Fragile. Then the fire popped, and reality returned. "We should get some sleep," Calvin said, his voice rough. "Tomorrow we'll need to dig out, start clearing paths." People settled down, found their spots. Emma curled up between her mother's arms. The teenagers leaned against each other. James wrapped himself in a blanket near the hearth. Calvin was about to head upstairs when Evelyn touched his arm. "Walk with me." He followed her to the window. Outside, the snow glowed in the moonlight. The storm had finally passed. "It's beautiful," she said. "It is." "Calvin, what happens to this place after Christmas?" He didn't want to answer, but she deserved honesty. "The bank takes it. First week of January. Foreclosure." She turned to him. "You're going to lose your father's legacy." "Yes, because you kept the light on?" "I kept the light on because it's the right thing to do. What happens after, that's not the light's fault. No, it's the world's fault. The world that values profit over principle." She looked back at the fire. "Do you know what the Aurora Foundation does?" "You said sustainable tourism. We do more than that. We find places like this places with heart, with meaning, and we help them survive. We provide funding, marketing, infrastructure. We turn them into destinations that support entire communities." Calvin's heart started beating faster. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've been to 100 lodges, resorts, hotels all over the world." She met his eyes. "And I've never seen anything like what you did tonight. You didn't just give us shelter. You gave us hope. You reminded 15 strangers what humanity looks like." "Evelyn, let me finish. What you have here, this place, this spirit, this commitment to being a light that's rare, that's worth saving." She paused. "I want to help you save it." Calvin stared at her. "You don't have to do that." "I know I don't have to. I want to. You saved my life. Let me save your father's dream." "I can't accept charity." "It's not charity. It's an investment. Aurora finds places worth preserving. This is one of them." She smiled. "Besides, you'd be doing us a favor. This lodge could be a flagship property, a model for others." Calvin looked around the room, at the sleeping guests, at the fire still burning, at the legacy his father had built. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything yet. When the storm clears, when we're all safe, we'll talk properly. But think about it, please." He nodded slowly. "I will." She squeezed his arm. "Merry Christmas, Calvin. Merry Christmas." She went to her sleeping spot. Calvin stood alone by the window. Outside, the clouds were breaking. Stars appeared. For the first time in days, he could see the sky. Behind him, someone was snoring softly. James, probably. The fire crackled. The lodge settled in the cold, and Calvin Brooks allowed himself to hope. Maybe the light wasn't going out after all. Christmas morning came with deceiving calm. The sky was clear. The sun rose over fresh snow, painting everything gold and white. Calvin woke to silence. For a moment, he thought everyone had left. Then he heard movement in the kitchen. Dave and the other truckers were making breakfast. What was left of it? "Morning," Dave said. "Figured I'd help out. We're down to the last of the oatmeal." "That's okay. Storm's over. Roads should clear by tonight." "You hope." Calvin looked out the window. The drifts were massive, 6 feet in places. It would take heavy equipment to clear the main road, but at least it had stopped snowing. He went outside to check the generator. The morning air was knife-sharp cold. His breath came out in clouds. The generator was encased in ice, frozen solid. He'd need a blowtorch to thaw it. "How's it look?" James appeared on the porch. "Dead. Can you fix it?" "Maybe, if I had time and the right tools. But you don't." "No." They stood in silence, watching the sun climb higher. "How much food left?" James asked quietly. "Enough for maybe one more meal, if we stretch it." And then Calvin didn't answer. Inside, people were waking up. Emma was crying soft, hiccuping sobs. Sarah tried to comfort her, but the little girl was inconsolable. "What's wrong?" Calvin asked. "She's hungry," Sarah said helplessly. "I told her we'd have breakfast soon, but—" "She can have my portion," Evelyn said immediately. "And mine," James added. "No." Calvin held up his hand. "Everyone eats. I'll make it work." But he didn't know how. He went to the kitchen, stared at the nearly empty shelves, did the math again, came up with the same answer. Not enough. The young hiker Calvin had learned his name was Tyler appeared in the doorway. "We should leave," Tyler said. "The storm's over. If we start walking now, we could reach the main road by afternoon. It's 10 miles to the highway, through 6 feet of snow. So we have gear. We're experienced. You also have frostbite on 3 toes and hypothermia from 2 days ago." Tyler flushed. "I'm fine." "You're alive. That's different than fine." "Look, I appreciate what you did, but we can't stay here forever. There's no food, no heat except that fire. If we leave now, we can send help back." Calvin considered it. Tyler had a point. The longer they stayed, the weaker everyone would get. But the walk was dangerous, and if something went wrong, a crash from the lobby cut off his thoughts. He ran out. One of the windows had shattered. Snow and wind poured through the gap. "What happened?" he shouted. "Branch hit it," Dave yelled back. "The wind just kicked up again." Calvin looked outside. The calm morning was gone. Dark clouds raced across the sky. The wind was already howling. The radio crackled to life. Second storm system moving in faster than expected. Winds exceeding 80 miles per hour. Life-threatening cold. "Do not travel." "Repeat, do not." Static. Then silence. Everyone stared at each other. "We're trapped," Sarah whispered. Tyler sank into a chair. "Oh my God, we're going to die here." "No," Calvin said firmly. "We're not." "How can you?" "Because we're going to survive. Together." Calvin looked around the room. "First, we board up that window. Dave, help me. James, inventory every scrap of food we have. Tyler, check on everyone, medical conditions, medications, anything I need to know. Sarah, keep Emma calm. Evelyn, I'll organize blankets and sleeping arrangements," she said. "If the heat's gone, we'll need to conserve body warmth." Good. They moved into action. Calvin and Dave used furniture to block the window. It wasn't perfect, but it stopped most of the wind. James reported back. 3 cans of soup, half a box of pasta, some crackers, coffee. That's it. Calvin did the math. "We can make 2 more meals, small ones. And after that, we pray the road's clear." But even as he said it, he knew. 2 days minimum before heavy equipment could get through. Maybe 3. They were going to run out of food. The temperature was dropping. Fast. Without the generator, the lodge was cooling. People moved closer to the fire. "We need more wood," Calvin said. The woodshed was outside. Calvin and Dave braved the storm, made 3 trips, brought in everything they could. The wind tried to knock them down. Snow stung like needles. On the last trip, Calvin slipped, fell hard. His knee cracked against ice. Dave pulled him up. "You good?" "Yeah," but his knee was screaming. He limped back inside. By noon, the situation was critical. The lodge was 40 degrees. People were shivering despite blankets. Emma had stopped crying, not because she felt better, but because she didn't have the energy. Calvin made soup, watered it down until it was barely more than broth, gave everyone half a cup. It wasn't enough. He could see it in their faces. He went to the office, sat at his father's desk, looked at the photo. "I don't know what to do," he said to the picture. "I saved them, but now I can't feed them. I kept the light on, but it's dying. What do I do?" His father's frozen smile offered no answers. Calvin put his head in his hands. His shoulders shook. For the first time since the storm began, he let himself feel the weight of it all. The responsibility, the fear, the exhaustion. A knock on the door. Evelyn came in. She didn't say anything, just sat beside him, put her hand on his back. They stayed like that for a long moment. "I'm failing them," Calvin said finally. "No, you're not. Look at what's happening. We're starving, freezing, and you can't control the weather, you can't create food from nothing. You're not God, Calvin. You're just a man doing the best he can. It's not enough." "It is." She turned his face toward hers. "Listen to me. You saved my life. You sheltered 15 people who would have died. You gave everything you had. That's not failure. That's heroism. Heroism doesn't feed people. No, but it gives them hope. And hope is what's keeping us alive right now. Not the food, not the fire. The belief that we're not alone, that someone cares. That's you." Calvin looked at her, saw the conviction in her eyes. "I'm scared," he admitted. "So am I. But we're scared together, and that makes all the difference." She stood up, extended her hand. "Come on. They need to see you. They need to see that you haven't given up." He took her hand, let her pull him to his feet. They went back to the lobby. Everyone looked up. Calvin took a breath. "Listen, I'm not going to lie to you. We're in trouble. We're almost out of food. The heat's gone. The second storm is worse than the first." He paused, looked at each person. "But we're still alive. We're still together. And that means we still have a chance. My father used to say, the darkest hour is just before the dawn. I never really understood that until now. We're in our darkest hour, but dawn is coming, and we're going to see it. Together." Nobody spoke. Then James started clapping. Slow, steady. Sarah joined in. Then Evelyn. Then Dave. Soon everyone was clapping. Even Tyler. Emma raised her hand. "Mr. Calvin, will you tell us a story?" "What kind of story?" "A happy one." Calvin smiled, sat down by the fire, and he told them about his father, about the lodge, about all the people who'd found light in the darkness over the years. He told them about a family of 5 who got stuck in a snowstorm on Thanksgiving, how his father fed them turkey and pie, even though it was meant for paying guests. He told them about a young couple whose car broke down on their wedding night, how his father let them honeymoon in the best room for free. He told them about a homeless veteran who showed up one Christmas with nothing, how his father gave him a job, a room, and a purpose. "This place," Calvin said, "has always been about more than business. It's been about people, about showing up when it matters, about being the light when everything else is dark." He looked at the fire, at the faces around him. "My father died keeping that promise, and I'll die keeping it too if that's what it takes. But I don't think it will, because I'm not alone anymore. I have all of you." For a little while in the cold and the hunger, they forgot to be afraid. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, the light stayed on. Calvin woke to sunlight, real sunlight. He sat up wincing. His knee was swollen. His body ached, but the light on his face was warm. The storm was over. He looked around. Everyone else was still sleeping, exhausted, hungry, but alive. He limped to the window. The sight took his breath away. Snow everywhere, blinding white. The drifts were 10 feet high in places. Trees bent under the weight. The world looked like it had been remade. But the sky was blue, clear, cloudless. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Evelyn stood beside him, wrapped in a blanket. "Yeah," he said, "it is." The road, buried, but visible. Give it a few hours for the plows to get through. So we're rescued. Soon. They stood in silence, watching the sunrise paint the snow pink and gold. "What will you do now?" she asked quietly. "Start over, I guess. Find work somewhere. The bank will sell this place. Someone will buy it. Knock it down probably. Build condos or something." "That's not what I meant." He looked at her. "I meant, what will you do with the rest of your life? You can't just give up." "I'm not giving up. I'm being realistic." Realism is giving up dressed in practical clothes. She turned to face him fully. "Calvin, listen to me. What you did here, saving us, keeping us together, giving us hope, that's not common. That's rare. That's a gift. I just did what anyone would. No, you didn't. Most people would have turned us away, or panicked, or let us fracture into chaos. But you held us together. You were the light." She paused. "The world needs more lights. Don't let this one go out." Before he could answer, the others started waking. There were groans, coughs, stretches. "Is the storm over?" Sarah asked. "It's over. Cheers." Weak, but genuine. Calvin divided the last of the food. Crackers and coffee. Not much, but something. As they ate, they heard it. Distant at first. Then louder. Engines. "Snowplows," Tyler jumped up. "They're coming!" Everyone rushed to the windows. Sure enough, two massive plows were working their way up the mountain road. Behind them, emergency vehicles. Within an hour, the first responders reached the lodge. A sheriff's deputy, a woman in her 50s, came through the door. "Everyone okay in here?" "We're alive," Calvin said. She looked around, counted heads. 15 people. "We got reports of a missing hiker, too. Evelyn Morrison." "Here," Evelyn raised her hand. "Thank God. Your foundation has half the country looking for you." The deputy looked at Calvin. "You're the owner." "Yes. You sheltered all these people." "I did what I could." She studied him, respect in her eyes. "You did more than that. You saved lives." The deputy organized evacuation. EMTs checked everyone. Emma got a granola bar and nearly cried with joy. The truckers were cleared to leave. The hikers were given blankets and hot chocolate. One by one, people started to go. But first, they came to Calvin. James shook his hand. "I won't forget this. You're a good man." Sarah hugged him. Emma gave him a drawing she'd made a house with a light in the window. Dave slapped his back. "If you ever need a trucker, call me. Anytime. Free of charge." Even Tyler approached sheepish. "I'm sorry I was an asshole." You're incredible. Thank you." Calvin accepted it all with quiet grace. Finally, only Evelyn remained. She had changed into dry clothes brought by her team. Looked like herself again, professional, composed, powerful. But she looked at him the same way she had by the fire. "This isn't goodbye," she said. "Isn't it?" "No. I told you. Aurora wants to help." "Evelyn, I appreciate the offer, but I can't accept. What if it's not charity? What if it's business?" He frowned. "What do you mean?" "Come with me to our office. Let me show you what we do. Meet the team. See the possibilities." She smiled. "No commitments, just conversation." "The bank can wait 3 days. That's all I'm asking. 3 days." Calvin looked at the lodge. His father's dream. His mother's memory. 40 years of light in the darkness. And he thought maybe it doesn't have to end. 3 days, he agreed. Her smile lit up her face. 3 days. A black SUV waited outside. Evelyn's team had brought it. She gestured for him to follow. At the door, Calvin stopped, looked back. The fire was out now. The lobby was empty. Cold morning light filled the space, but somehow it didn't feel dead. It felt like something sleeping, waiting. He locked the door behind him, turned the sign to closed. The light on the sign was still off, the generator still frozen. But as he walked to the SUV, he thought he saw it flicker. Just once, like a promise. 3 days later, Calvin stood in the lobby of Aurora Foundation's Denver headquarters. Glass and steel, modern art on the walls, people in expensive clothes talking about sustainable impact and stakeholder engagement. He felt like a fish on dry land. Evelyn appeared, rescuing him. "Sorry, meeting ran long. Come on." She led him through the building, showed him maps of projects in Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, lodges they'd funded, communities they'd supported, success stories. "This is what we do," she said. "We find places with soul, with purpose, and we help them thrive by buying them, by partnering with them. We provide capital marketing operational support. In exchange, we take a percentage of revenue, but the owner retains control. The vision stays intact." Calvin studied a photo on the wall. A restored lodge in Vermont. Historic, beautiful, still operating after 90 years. What would it look like? He asked. For Beacon Lodge. Evelyn opened a folder, spread papers across the conference table, financial projections, architectural renderings, marketing plans. "We'd pay off your debts. That's first. Clean slate, then invest in renovations, new generator, updated plumbing, modernized rooms while preserving the original character, new roof, better insulation, solar panels to supplement power." Calvin picked up one of the renderings. The lodge looked the same but better, restored to its original glory. How much would this cost? $300,000 for the immediate needs. Another $200,000 over 5 years for expansion and improvements. His stomach dropped. $500,000. It's an investment, not a gift. She pulled out another document. Here's the revenue model. Based on our marketing reach and the story of what happened here, we project full occupancy 8 months of the year. That's enough to pay back the investment in 7 years, with you retaining 80% ownership. You'd only take 20%. That's our standard partnership. We're not trying to own your lodge, Calvin. We're trying to save it. He looked at the numbers. They seemed impossible. Too good to be true. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you do this?" Evelyn sat down across from him. "Because 3 days ago I was dying in a ravine, and you climbed down and carried me out. You didn't know me. Didn't know I had money or connections. You did it because it was right. That's not, let me finish. Her voice was firm, but gentle. I've spent 3 years building Aurora, traveling the world, funding dozens of projects, and you know what? Most of them are just fine. They're financially successful. They check the boxes, but they don't have a soul. She gestured around the office. This place, all this glass and steel, it's impressive, but it's cold. It's not real. She looked him in the eye. Beacon Lodge is real. What you did is real. That's worth more than any amount of money. Calvin didn't know what to say. There's something else, Evelyn continued. Your story is already spreading. Social media, news outlets, people are calling you a hero. She showed him her phone. Articles, posts, thousands of comments. One headline read, Montana Innkeeper risks life to save strangers in Christmas blizzard. Another, the light that wouldn't go out, one man's stand against the storm. Calvin felt dizzy. This is too much. It's opportunity. People want places like Beacon Lodge. They want to believe that kindness still exists, that someone still puts people before profit. She closed the folder. We can give you the resources to keep that promise, to keep that light on, not just for a few more years, but forever. And what do you want in return? 20% of revenue, operational consultation, brand alignment with Aurora's values. She paused. And one more thing. What? I want to be personally involved, not just as CEO, as a partner. I want to help you build this. Calvin studied her face, saw something raw there, something vulnerable. Why? He asked again. She took a breath. Because you saved my life. Because I see in you what I saw in my husband, a belief that the world can be better. Because I'm tired of projects that are just business. Her voice softened. Because for the first time in 3 years, I feel like I have a purpose again. The honesty in her eyes was painful to look at. I need time to think, Calvin said. Of course. Take all the time you need. She walked him to the elevator, gave him her card. Call me when you decide. No pressure. Whatever you choose, I'll respect it. The elevator doors closed. Calvin rode down alone. That night in his hotel room, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the lodge, about his father, about the 15 people he'd saved, about Evelyn's offer. His phone rang. Bank number. Mr. Brooks, the banker said, we've been trying to reach you. I know. I'm ready to talk about a payment plan. Silence. Then, Mr. Brooks, the foreclosure has been canceled. Calvin's heart stopped. What? Someone paid your debt in full, 12 hours ago. Anonymous donor. The property is yours, free and clear. Evelyn. It had to be. Calvin hung up, stared at the wall. His hands were shaking. She'd done it without asking, without permission. Fury rose in his chest, then gratitude, then confusion. He called her. She answered on the first ring. You paid my debts. Yes. You had no right. I had every right. You saved my life. This is how I save yours. By making me feel like a charity case. By giving you a choice. Her voice was calm, steel underneath. The debt is gone. You own the lodge outright. You can walk away. Sell it. Do whatever you want. Or you can partner with us. Build something bigger than either of us could alone. Keep the light on Calvin. Not out of obligation, but because you want to. He closed his eyes, felt the weight of it, the decision, the future. This isn't how I do things, he said quietly. I know. You do things alone. You carry the weight yourself. You don't ask for help. Her voice softened. But maybe it's time to let someone share the load. Calvin thought of his father, walking into that storm alone, dying alone. He thought of the 15 people in the lodge, how they'd survived together. Maybe Evelyn was right. Maybe strength wasn't about carrying everything yourself. Maybe it was about knowing when to accept help. I'll think about it, he said. That's all I ask. He hung up, sat in the silence of the hotel room. Outside, Denver glittered, a city of lights, but none of them felt like home. The next morning, Calvin took a walk, ended up in a coffee shop, sat by the window watching people pass. A young mother with a stroller, an old man walking a dog, business people rushing to meetings. Normal life, the life that continued while he'd been trapped in a storm. His phone buzzed. Text from James. Saw the news. Your famous brother. Don't forget about us little people. Then Sarah. Emma asks about you every day. She drew you another picture. Can I send it? Then Dave serious about that trucking offer. You need anything moved, I'm your guy. One by one, messages came in from all 15 people, checking on him, thanking him, telling him they'd never forget. Calvin stared at his phone. at the proof that what he'd done mattered, that the light had reached them, changed them. He thought about Evelyn's words, "The world needs more lights." Maybe she was right. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was just the beginning. He finished his coffee, made his decision. Calvin returned to Beacon Lodge 2 days later. The place was exactly as he'd left it, empty, cold, quiet, but not dead. Never dead. He walked through the rooms, touched the walls his father had built, remembered his mother's laugh echoing through the halls, remembered hundreds of guests over the years, thousands of lives touched, the weight of it pressed down on him. But this time, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a legacy worth fighting for. In the office, he sat at his father's desk. The photo watched him. "I'm going to do it, Dad," he said to the picture. "I'm going to accept help. I know you always did everything alone, but I can't. And maybe that's okay. Maybe asking for help doesn't make me weak. Maybe it makes me smart." His father's frozen smile seemed to approve. Calvin picked up the phone, called Evelyn. "I'm in," he said. "You're sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." He could hear her smile through the phone. "That's good enough. I'll have my team draw up the papers. We can start work in 2 weeks." "Evelyn." "Yeah. Thank you for believing in this place, for believing in me. Thank you for letting me." They spent the next week planning. Evelyn brought her team to the lodge, architects, marketing people, financial advisors. At first, Calvin hated it. All these strangers touching his father's legacy, suggesting changes, talking about brand optimization and market positioning. But then he saw the plans. They weren't destroying the lodge. They were honoring it. New generator, but hidden so it didn't ruin the aesthetic. Updated plumbing, but keeping original fixtures wherever possible. Modern amenities, but disguised within the historic framework. And the sign, the light. "We're commissioning a new one," Evelyn said. "LED technology. More reliable, energy efficient, but it'll look identical to the original. Light always on." Calvin felt something crack inside him. "Thank you. This is your father's dream. We're just helping it survive." The loan documents arrived. Calvin read every word. 20% revenue share. Aurora Foundation as partner. But Calvin Brooks as owner. Final say on all decisions. He signed. But even as he put pen to paper, doubt crept in. That night alone in the lodge, the doubts grew louder. What if he was making a mistake? What if this changed everything his father built? What if he was selling out? The questions swirled, kept him awake. He went downstairs, stood in the empty lobby. The fire was cold. The room was dark. He thought about walking away, calling Evelyn, saying he'd changed his mind. Then he remembered something. Emma's drawing. The one she'd given him. He'd tucked it into his father's photo frame. He went back to the office, looked at it. A simple crayon drawing, a house with a bright light in the window, stick figures holding hands around it. At the bottom, in wobbly letters, "Thank you for the light." Calvin stared at it, felt his throat tighten. This was why. Not for money, not for success. For people like Emma, for families like Sarah's, for veterans like James and truckers like Dave, for everyone who needed a light in the darkness. His father had started it, but it didn't have to end with him. It could grow, reach more people, shine brighter. As long as the heart of it, the promise, the purpose stayed the same. Calvin took a breath. Let the doubt go. He was doing the right thing. 1 month later, construction began. The crew was respectful, careful. They treated the lodge like a museum. Calvin worked alongside them, learning, contributing, slowly letting go of the idea that he had to do everything himself. Evelyn visited twice a week, sometimes to check progress, sometimes just to talk. They'd sit by the fire now, safely upgraded with a new chimney liner, and drink coffee. "Tell me about your husband," Calvin said one evening. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, his name was Michael. He was brilliant, reckless, believed he could climb any mountain if he just tried hard enough. She smiled sadly. He was right mostly, until he wasn't. "You loved him." "I did, still do in some ways. But I'm learning to love his memory without being trapped by it." She looked at Calvin. "What about you? James mentioned you'd lost your wife." Calvin hadn't talked about Diane in 2 years, but somehow with Evelyn it felt safe. Cancer, fast and brutal, 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. She wanted to fight, did everything the doctor said, but it wasn't enough. He stared into the fire. "I came back here because I didn't know where else to go. The city felt empty without her. At least here I had purpose." Keeping the light on. "Yeah, that's not a purpose. That's penance." He looked at her sharply. "I'm not judging," she said quickly. "I did the same thing. Threw myself into Aurora, worked 18-hour days, told myself it was for Michael, to honor his memory. But really I was running from grief. And now I'm learning to carry it, not run from it, to let the grief exist alongside the joy." She met his eyes. "You can do the same. Keep your father's light burning, but live your own life too." Calvin didn't respond. Couldn't. But he heard her. And deep down he knew she was right. The weeks passed. The lodge transformed. New windows, new roof, new generator humming quietly in the back. But it still looked like his father's lodge. Still felt like home. One afternoon, Calvin stood in the parking lot watching the work. The sign was being installed. The new one. Evelyn's team had worked on it for weeks. They flipped the switch. The light blazed. Brighter than ever. Clean. Strong. Steady. Beacon Lodge. Light always on. Calvin felt tears on his face, didn't wipe them away. "It's perfect," Evelyn said beside him. "Yeah, it is." She squeezed his hand. "Your father would be proud." "I hope so." 3 months after the construction began, Beacon Lodge reopened. The reopening was small. Invitation only. The 15 people from the storm were all invited. James came first, drove up in his old Chevy military uniform, pressed and decorated. He stood in the parking lot looking at the renovated lodge and saluted. "Welcome back," Calvin said. "Good to be back." James looked around. "Place looks amazing, but it still feels like home." That was the goal. Sarah and Emma arrived next. Emma squealed with delight, ran to Calvin, hugged his legs. "Mr. Calvin, the light is so pretty." "You like it. I love it." Dave and the other truckers showed up in clean shirts, looking uncomfortable but happy. Tyler came with his hiking group, humbled and grateful. They gathered in the lobby. The fire roared. The chandelier, original restored, gleamed overhead. New furniture mixed with old. Modern comfort balanced with historic charm. It was perfect. Calvin stood at the front, Evelyn beside him. He raised a glass. "To my father, who built this place with his own hands, who taught me that kindness isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And to all of you, who reminded me what that light is really for." To the light, everyone echoed. They drank, laughed, shared stories. Sarah told about how Emma still drew pictures of the lodge. Dave talked about telling the story to every trucker he met. James showed them a newspaper article he'd framed. "Hero Innkeeper saves 15 in Christmas blizzard." Tyler stood up nervous. "I want to say something. When I got here, I was a jerk. Complained. Acted entitled. But Calvin, you showed me something. You showed me what real strength looks like. Not physical, not loud, just steady. Always there, like a light." He looked at Calvin. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Calvin nodded, couldn't speak. As the evening went on, people drifted outside, stood in the parking lot looking up at the sign. The light blazed against the twilight, warm, welcoming, eternal. "It's beautiful," Sarah whispered. "It's a promise," Calvin said. Later, after everyone had left, Calvin and Evelyn stood on the porch. The night was clear, stars everywhere. "You did it," she said. "We did it." "No, you did. I just helped." He looked at her. Really looked. At the woman who'd been a stranger 4 months ago, who'd become a partner, a friend, maybe more. "Thank you," he said, "for everything. Thank you for letting me." They stood in comfortable silence. The light from the sign washed over them. "What's next?" Calvin asked. Evelyn smiled. "Whatever we want. That's the beauty of it." She pulled out a folder. Aurora's had inquiries. 6 other lodges. Similar stories. Similar struggles. They want what you have here. And you want me to help. I want us to help. Together. Build a network of places like this. Lights in the darkness all across the country. Calvin thought about it. A year ago, he would have said no. Would have insisted on staying small, manageable, safe. But he'd learned something. Growth wasn't betrayal. Change wasn't loss. Sometimes the best way to honor the past was to build a bigger future. "I'm in," he said. Evelyn's face lit up. "Really? Really? But I have one condition." "What?" "Every lodge keeps the light on. Always. No matter what." She held out her hand. "Deal." They shook. Partners, friends. Maybe someday something more. But for now, this was enough. The door chimed. Late arrival. Calvin stood to greet them. A man mid-30s stumbled in, covered in snow, shaking. "I'm sorry," he gasped. "My car broke down about a mile back. I've been walking." "I saw your light." "Come in," Calvin said immediately. "Get by the fire. I'll bring blankets." The man looked at him with tears in his eyes. "Thank you. God, thank you. I thought I was going to die out there." Calvin helped him to the fire. Evelyn brought hot coffee. They wrapped him in blankets, called a tow truck, made sure he was safe. As the man warmed up, he kept saying it. "I saw your light. I didn't think I'd make it, but I saw your light." Later, after the man was settled in a room, Calvin stood at the window, looking out at the sign. Beacon Lodge, light always on. His father smiled down from the wall. Proud, peaceful. "We did it, Dad," Calvin whispered, the light still shining. Evelyn came to stand beside him. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. They watched the snow begin to fall. Gentle this time, beautiful. And somewhere miles away, someone else saw that light, found their way home, knew they weren't alone. 1 year later, Calvin stood on the lodge's front porch watching another winter evening settle over the mountains. Behind him, the lodge hummed with life. Guests checked in at the front desk. A family played board games by the fire. In the restaurant New Edition, Evelyn's idea, the smell of fresh bread filled the air. Beacon Lodge wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Every room was booked through New Year's. People came from all over now, not just for the skiing or the views. They came for the story, the light that wouldn't go out, the man who risked everything, hope in the darkness. Calvin Maria, his new assistant manager, poked her head out. "Guest at the front desk asking for you. Be right there." He walked through the lobby. The place was full. Laughter, warmth, life. At the desk stood a young woman, college-aged, nervous. "Mr. Brooks." "That's me." "I'm Jenny Morrison, Evelyn's niece. She said I should introduce myself." Calvin smiled. "She mentioned you might visit." "Welcome to Beacon Lodge. I'm doing research for my thesis on community-based tourism. Aunt Evelyn said this place was the perfect case study." Jenny looked around. "I can see why. It's beautiful. But more than that, it feels safe. Like coming home." "That's the idea." They talked for a few minutes. Calvin gave her a tour, showed her the updated facilities, the new generator room, the guest rooms that balanced modern comfort with historic charm. In the office, he showed her the photo of his father. "He started all this," Calvin said. "Everything we do now is built on his foundation, but we've expanded it, made it bigger, reached more people." "Aunt Evelyn says you're a hero." Calvin shook his head. "I'm just a man who kept a promise." "That's what makes you a hero." He didn't argue, just smiled and sent her to settle in. That evening, as planned, Evelyn arrived. She came every Christmas Eve now, a tradition. Spent a week at the lodge helping with operations, meeting guests, planning the next year's initiatives. But mostly, she came because it felt right. "How's it look?" she asked, dropping her bags in the lobby. "Booked solid. Waitlist for dinner. Gift shop sold out of those commemorative mugs. The ones with the light on them." "Yeah," she grinned. "I knew those would work." They walked to the restaurant, had dinner with some of the guests. Everyone wanted to hear the story. How Evelyn had been saved, how the lodge had been saved. Calvin told it, simplified now, polished from repetition. But the heart of it remained true. After dinner, they sat by the fire, just the two of them. 5 more lodges have reached out, Evelyn said. Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Vermont, and 1 in New Hampshire. They've all heard about what we did here. They want the same thing. Can we handle that many? With the right team, yes. I'm hiring 2 more consultants. People who understand what we're building here, not just a business, a movement. Calvin looked at the fire, thought about his father, about the promise. As long as every one of them keeps the light on, he said, always. They clinked their coffee mugs together. The door chimed. Another late arrival. A woman this time. Elderly. Confused. Lost. Calvin stood immediately. Went to her. "Ma'am, are you all right?" I got turned around. I was trying to get to my daughter's house, but the roads." She started crying. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry. You're safe now. Come in. Get warm." He helped her to the fire. Evelyn called the police, gave them a description. Within 20 minutes, they'd located her daughter. The woman kept holding Calvin's hand. "Thank you. Thank you for the light. I saw it, and I knew I'd be okay." After she left, reunited with her daughter, Calvin stood at the window again. The sign glowed, steady, strong, eternal. Evelyn joined him, slipped her hand into his. "Still worth it?" she asked. "Always." They stood together, partners, friends, something more. Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall, and the light kept shining, for everyone who needed it, for everyone who would ever need it. The storm had come, the storm had passed, but the light remained, always.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.